happening now? We'd like to welcome our viewers from across North America and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room, episode 372 for April the 8th, 2026. My name is Wes Fryer, and I'm coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina, where I am a media literacy and STEM teacher, a middle school teacher, and I'm being joined, as always, across the internet through the amazing power of fiber optics by Dr. Jason Neiffer, who is the EdTech Yoda of the North. He also, works for the Montana Digital Academy and plays a role in, state AI breakthroughs, I think. So have you been nominated for the Nobel Prize yet, Dr. Neiffer?
The Nobel Prize in nerdery, perhaps, but I did get, actually, this is quite an honor. I'm going to sound like I'm joking, but I'm not. I didn't know they had this award, but I've been nominated as the University of Montana Innovator of the Year. So the awards assembly is on Friday night, and I will be traveling on Friday night, unfortunately, but and the four other people on there are real.
I was going to say, did Caitlin get nominated for that too? Did I see that?
She won a staff award for being a trailblazer, and then didn't make the finals here, although she deserves it more than I do. But the other four on the list are, four really amazing folks at the University of Montana. So it's really an honor just to be on that list. So pretty exciting stuff. I think I mentioned that I won the teacher part of Montana for the Presidential AI Challenge.
No, you did not mention that. This is for the White House Presidential Challenge?
Yeah, so I entered because I thought it wouldn't look very good if Montana didn't have anyone else doing it, and I just don't know how much it got promoted in the state. As it turns out, two student groups also won, which is just great. But I won the teacher one for Montana, and then I competed last week at regionals, I guess. I think it was the West Regional, to determine if it was like 20-minute presentation. It felt very much like a speech competition, Wes, but it was my AI expository speech. But I mean, I felt pretty good after it, but I also really like to speak, so it could be that my project is just. But
when do they announce that?
Apparently, they're going to announce the finalists in mid-April, and then if I make the finals, it's a trip to DC in June. So.
Yes, that is so cool. I almost threw my hat in the ring for that because you had mentioned that on the show in advance, and so and you also just wonder, how many people are applying. So congratulations, that is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Well, so there's that, and then Friday though you won't be around for the Montana one, or at least for the award ceremony.
I'm traveling, sadly, but I did send my good wishes to the ceremony and to let me know who won so that I could congratulate them for being innovative and awesome. So,
okay, that's cool. So you'll find out about that one after Friday night.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah. Well, that's outstanding. You're doing great work. So what is it that we're going to do here tonight on the Situation Room with our 13 live viewers that have just suddenly jumped on, probably from YouTube?
Well, hello, live viewers. The EdTech Situation Room is a podcast about technology and education, and we have been scouring the internet for hours to determine what stories that you might want to hear. And here we go on our topics tonight. We've got some AI topics, of course, some security, which I just noticed I accidentally put a Google article under security, which is actually an AI article. Hey,
it's okay.
Some media literacy, which is increasingly wildly important. Social media news, our miscellaneous category, and tonight's awesomeness with our Geeks of the Week. Dr. Fryer, where would you like to start tonight?
Oh my gosh. Well, shoot. I was about to just jump right into the AI. We know we're going to talk about a lot of AI, so let's do some not AI stuff first. Let's talk about quantum computing and encryption, and then we can talk about Verity. Have I mentioned Verity before?
You might have.
Okay, so just on Monday, I facilitated a webinar for the Media Education Lab about Verity and also just about AI and news. And so I was not aware of this. They approached me, and actually I wanted to be careful not to do like just a product, shtick. and they did a wonderful job. They had several members of their team. The article I dropped in is called "Studies." Well, shoot, let me share it because hey, we can share the screen. It's about quantum computing and encryption. So hopefully, I haven't shared this in a while. Okay, I'm on Chrome, so it should work. There we go. Like all sides and some other websites that are trying to portray a gamut of perspectives, Verity is an AI powered but human filtered website that comes out of MIT and a nonprofit that Max Tegmark helped start a number of years ago called Improve the News. So this article, poses the question, is quantum computing an imminent encryption crisis, or is the tech world already ahead of the threat? And this was published on April the 2nd. It was 6 days ago. So the way that the website works is it has a lot of sources here, but it puts them on a grid between left, center, and right, but then also whether they're what they call pro-establishment or establishment critical. And then in the top of the article, it's got points that basically the different news sources agree on. So in this case, it says Google set a 2029 target for trying to mitigate this threat. And if you're not familiar with this, we've talked about it before. Once quantum computing becomes a reality, then basically all the encryption that powers the modern web and e-commerce and banking and all of this is potentially broken and up for grabs for anybody. And there's a ton of stuff on the dark web which has been, quote, encrypted, but evidently people are holding on to because they think that, hey, once we have quantum computing, we're going to be able to read all this mail, or so to speak. So there's two preprint studies. One is from Google and one's from another Pasadena-based startup called Oratomic that suggests that quantum computers capable of breaking current encryption could arrive sooner than the 10-year minimum timeline. And then Google researchers estimate breaking the 256-bit elliptic curve cryptography used by Bitcoin and Ethereum could be achieved using less than what they call 1,200 logical qubits. And that's a 20-fold reduction, so basically faster. And so there's more, okay? So now, after this, you get into what's called the spin. And in some cases, it's going to be, here's what the left says, here's what the right says. In some cases, it'll also say this is a pro status quo, this is a critical status quo. This one just says narrative A and B. And so narrative A is saying, hey, this is going to arrive faster. We're not ready. We got to act now. This is going to cause all kinds of problems. And then narrative B says, hey, we're ready for it. The industry is moving with purpose, and this is not going to be that big of a deal. One of the interesting things, too, is prediction markets. I don't know that we've talked a ton about prediction markets. They've been in the news a bunch. And so you have this prediction market related essentially wager that people are making from Metaculus. And I did learn during the webinar that they have a sponsorship, I think, relationship with Metaculus. So it's interesting when these are popping up. And then you've got controversies that are related. And if there are individuals that are involved here, you can go ahead and click on them. So anyway, this is an important issue. We've talked about this a little bit before. I don't know that we've got consensus on a lot when it comes to AI, and we'll talk about the AI documentary that is out now that my wife and I are going to try to see this weekend. Quantum computing is one of these things too, like artificial general intelligence. People are saying it's going to happen, but nobody knows when, and so it's one of these things that could certainly threaten a lot. But Verity as a news source is a source that I am starting to use more. The thing that came out of our webinar, and I'll put the link to the webinar in if people want to check that out because it is archived, is like, what does the AI do? It's still kind of a black box. They revealed that they have, I think, 35 different people that are on their team that are vetting these news articles and making sure that they're ready to go. But anyway, the question of what does it do, I would love to see some attribution, and what happens when things are controversial and what do the humans do. That's the link to the Media Education Lab webinar from this last week. So any thoughts, Dr. Neifer, about quantum computing, the risk they pose, or the Verity platform? Or maybe there's another news platform like this that you've also seen that you like, that is trying to sort of, reminds me of like Metacrawler or maybe Dogpile. I don't know. It's trying to get
Thinking old
multiple.
school.
Yeah, we're going old school. We're going Dogpile, man. I want to just, want to put that in the title of a podcast.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember the app and I used to subscribe to it, but I just couldn't justify it enough. It was very similar to this news something that, but I'm not gonna remember what it was, but it was really good, and I did use it often, but I think it was like 4.99 or $10 or something a month, and when I was seeking more news, then it was worth it. But right now, I'm not seeking more news. But I do really like this concept. I think it's something you can share with students. And when I've heard criticism of sites like this, well, kids should be doing this themselves. Well, I agree. I think every kid should be digging deeply into every news issue and seeing all the sides and weighing them. But that's highly unrealistic. And also, I mean, kids take lazy ways out, right? Like maybe walk them through on how to gather multiple sources a couple of times through, but then giving them access to a tool like this, I really think is a pretty killer strategy. And so this is how we should be teaching things like source verification.
And I really think that vibe coding and just, coding in general, but vibe coding can open up doors that wouldn't have been open before. I'm thinking, wouldn't it be cool to vibe code together with the class, or use a tool that's been vibe coded that does let you peer under the hood, and basically then you can, decide what sources to include, what side, what to favor, what are the questions that you're asking. It's sort of like Venn diagrams, right? What's the overlay between these different articles? I really do think that AI provides an opportunity for us
Yeah,
to increase our expectations for what students can do both
yeah,
inside and outside the classroom. And so I was excited to learn about this tool. I want to continue exploring it, but it also, as a type of website, I think then if anybody, is in our chat, is seeing this after the fact, please comment on our Substack or whatever to let us know. Allsides.com is the other one that I've been, and then Ground News, I guess. Both of those are trying to do the same sort of thing, of lots of different sources. And it's important today, right? We live in a polarized time. Many of us, myself included, we've got a wide variety of parents and families and folks that are in different places politically. And so we do, I think, need to be careful when we choose news sources, and using a site like this. And I think Google News does a reasonable job of it too, in terms of presenting, hey, here's this issue, here's all these different news sources that are talking about it. But Verity is actually trying to sort of position the different news articles in this grid, on these continuums, and then draw out where these different narratives are, which I think is very helpful. So if
yeah.
anybody out there has some other tools that you're using, I mean, I want to attend more webinars and workshops on this. And I'm, last month I did a session called Reclaiming Our News Feeds for the Thrive Conference, and that's going to be one of my things I think I'm going to keep working on. I've applied for a couple TEDx talks that haven't been accepted yet, but news feeds and fashioning our news feeds and figuring out how AI fits into all that, and what are we going to trust, and how do we look into what these AI tools are doing. It's all good stuff. And Dr. Knifer, I know you've been playing with OpenClaw, and maybe that might end up being some of my OpenClaw experiments, in down the road, would be the agentic
Yeah.
potential of us to monitor, even for the EdTech Situation Room. Tonight, I did not use a Gemini Gem or a custom GPT. I don't use ChatGPT much at all anymore, but I didn't use anything like that to get articles. I was kind of old school, but it could be very useful to do that.
Yeah, totally. A couple other quick thoughts about the quantum computing and the breaking of crypto. This is something I've actually read a little bit about in the last couple of weeks, just because I wanted to know how scary that was, right? Like what happens when that occurs. And the good news is, and I don't want to claim to be an expert by any stretch of the imagination, there are several solutions coming, right? The next generation of cryptography. And just like the current level succeeded much lower quality levels, there are new ones to come. And so I'm trying to remember some of the terms. It's things, I think it's as simple as like post quantum cryptography is one example of this that adds dimensions to it. There's a couple of physics based ones that treats the key like it's quantum mechanics, and to be frank, I couldn't even tell you what that means, but the idea is that it's really easy to change the key during an attack because of the way the key is set up using quantum mechanics. And right now there are apparently experiments in like super secure locations, think the CIA kind of place, or very, very, very secure computer situations where they are playing with these. So more coming soon. They just take more computing power.
I have a friend who has taught cryptography, and I very quickly get to the end of my mathematical capabilities when it comes to these kinds of conversations. It certainly is an area that we need people to be mathematically very sophisticated, and cryptography. But cryptography is not something like everybody's going to have to learn how to do it in depth. But the experts that are working on this are doing extremely important work, and I am confident that we're going to be able to figure this out based on conversations I've had with people that are far smarter than me when it comes to these kinds of issues. So I don't think the sky is falling, but it is going to be significant, and it may kind of be like a Y2K thing. It also depends on how inexpensive the quantum computers can become, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's a
if
good point.
only the NSA and nation states and whatever have access to them, that's not going to pose that great of a threat. But if we have, quantum computers that people are going to be able to run on their homes, and it's just not going to be crazy expensive, then um, anyway, that I think that is the future that we're headed towards. But it's not happening tomorrow. But it is one of those things that is coming along with AGI and other really small things.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, what next?
Let's see. I lost
You want to do your
the
Google article?
which one?
Your Google article?
Yes. Oh, let's talk about Gamma 4. Last week, Google announced the release of an open source model called Gemma 4. It is the fourth edition of their kind of major open source play. And the thing about Gemma 1 and Gemma 2 and Gemma 3 was that they were okay, right? They were open sourced. And in fact, more people were playing with Gemma before there was Gemini. Gemma was an early release by Google. And in fact, Gemini, um, has blown them away as their commercial models. But Gemma is two things. It's completely open source, open weights. You can do whatever you want with it, and it also works really well on edge technology. And by edge technology, we mean low function technology. So your phone is a good example of this. And I've been playing with a couple of versions of Gemma over the last week. I have a Mac Mini 4 with quite a bit of RAM in it, and so I have the ability to run most models on my computer. But I was super excited. I downloaded the most powerful open source version available using LN Studio, and as it turns out, I can run that model for free, the full downloadable version of that model for free. And it's a little slower than Gemini ChatGPT, but not by much. And the quality is simply amazing. And so, again, I get why most people defer to the commercial models are the easiest to get to, but we have models now that you should be paying next to nothing for the compute, or if you have a relatively modern Mac, you can just run it on your own computer.
Is locally AI the one that you told me about for running it on your phone, or was that something else?
That sounds right. Yeah, that's one of the phone-based ones.
Okay, because I did download that and
Yep.
had
So did I.
played with that. And, there's a whole lot of issues with all this. Energy is something that folks are understandably talking about and concerned about, when you're being able to run that on a local model. Also, I think there's some interesting implications for schools, right? Our school continues to license Flint AI. I don't know if we'll continue to do that in the future, but when you have something running locally and it's locally controlled, that's different than some third-party company and all the different security and privacy and different things that can enter in. I mean, those things are still important, but I don't know. Jeff Udek, I think, is doing some stuff with this,
He
perhaps on
is,
his
yeah.
consulting
He's
side.
selling a server. Yep, selling a
Hmm.
server that has local models on it. I mean, I do think that there's a lot of possibilities here, but and this is changing, right? Especially with what's available. And in fact, I'm just now downloading a Gamma 4, and I should say, um, uh, for the nerdles among you, there's different quantizations of these models, right? And so they can get them much smaller than the actual model. You just lose some quality with the smaller model. It runs faster, and on something like my phone. But that's what I'm downloading right now on locally is Gamma 4. It's the E2B model, which is intended for devices, right, or smaller devices like a phone. I'm running the full deal Gamma 4 on my home Mac Mini because it's got a lot of RAM in it, and and I'm using that through LM Studio, and it's as fast, as any old chatty model. And I have to say that the quality is pretty darn good. I would liken it to somewhere around a little more advanced than GPT-4. And GPT-4 was the model that lasted almost a year and a half, being the best model in the world. So the fact that the free open source version of this can do some of that output, that's pretty interesting and impressive stuff.
Private edu.ai is Jeff Udek's company that I think
Yeah,
he's doing. So yeah, interesting. I mean, I think like the water flowing downhill, gravity. I mean, I think we're going to migrate to the most capable models. So,
yeah,
you know, trying to attract folks to say, hey, use this local model instead of using the most, the most powerful frontier model that people can access through the web is probably going to be a bit of a hard sell. But
yeah. Couldn't
I
agree more.
will say that, and we've said this before on the show, it's so interesting how China has been pursuing more the open side of open weights and open models and things like that, whereas United States companies have been the proprietary ones. So I know what is it with Llama, and that's one. It isn't Facebook Meta releasing that. Is
Yeah,
Llama
llamas.
the
Yeah, llamas
open?
are. Yeah, it really. Llama 4 was pretty disappointing. You may remember from the original release, they kind of juiced the stats a little bit to get higher
Yeah,
on LM Arena, and that kind of killed their momentum. But I
yeah,
know of a lot of projects. I don't know about any commercial tools, but I know a lot of projects that still use a Llama 3 variant with a lot of success. And if you get into kind of home lab hosting LLMs, I mean, it is a nerdy rabbit hole for sure. But you'll find that a lot of the recommended models are offshoots of those Llama 3.3 models from Meta, and that's like a year and a half old.
yeah. Well, it does seem odd not to mention the fact that we have another war going on, and there's yesterday was just was really crazy. I have an article that I put under media literacy, which I think is from Psychology Today, which is not a source we might have ever quoted before. And I'll talk about a little bit more of this in my Geek of the Week and what the Media Education Lab session is for next month. But this is an article from April 1st, and it's called "We're Being Played Through Propaganda, Memes, and War. Meme-driven narratives use cultural cues to trigger emotion and sell war." And this is not something that I am directly teaching to my middle schoolers. I really debated this because memes are a huge part of social media. They're a huge part of internet culture. And what has been somewhat more, not somewhat, just like it's been fringe, is now so mainstream. And if you're not familiar with not only the memes coming out of the United States Department of Defense, I want to call them the Department of War, but also out of Iran, um, it's really just wild. And this talks about the psychology of nostalgia, the way in which a well-constructed meme triggers emotion, taps into feelings that we have. It attempts to truncate information, provoking a response. Humor lowers defenses, suspends critical analysis, enhances cultural bonding, and it argues that we're in the age of mimetic warfare. And so, again, you might not be aware of this, but there's been this like war of memes between the White House and the United States, and between Iran, and apparently collusion with Russian actors. And, we're talking SpongeBob, Captain America, Legos, the glorifying
Yeah.
of real missile strike violence juxtaposed with all kinds of Hollywood movie clips and stuff like that. And so it talks about how memes work in the brain, that young men are particularly the target, and that this is really, shaping reality. And so I think this is an important topic. It's a media literacy topic. It's something that's just, I don't know. This is, depending on the parts of the internet that you hang out with, this has become very pervasive for many people. And I think propaganda has been around forever. That's not anything new. But the use of memes in this way is a real challenge. And so, anyway,
I under the desk news, and I think this was on TikTok, which I accidentally downloaded to my phone for a couple of days again. I will be deleted again soon. But they were showing a couple of Iranian propaganda videos that were done up in Lego style.
Yes, that's what I'm
And
talking about.
I mean, like, it is wild, right? It blows the brain a little bit, and it doesn't have a necessarily a direct AI connection, except that almost certainly a lot of these videos are generated,
These are
right?
being generated
Like,
with AI tools. Yes.
yeah. There's just you could have done this 10 years ago with a underground animation studio, but that just wasn't a thing. Well, now it's effortless to create this stuff, and for better or for worse, it does dramatically increase the availability and the ultimate use of propaganda, right? And I don't exactly know what media literacy looks like in this kind of post AI world. I would say, Wes, you've been an expert in this long before I was even all that interested in the issue. Do you have any thoughts to share in regards to how we start to approach this in our classrooms, other than directly talking about it?
Well, I mean, my geek of the week is going to be the May topic for the Media Education Labs Media Ed Club. I mean, I think we need to start exploring it as we are tonight, talking about some of these articles and these issues. I think part of this is also the gap that exists between youth and older adults and generations as far as media landscapes. And it's not just age. Just because you're a young person doesn't necessarily mean you're seeing this stuff on TikTok. But I mean, it is such a different world today with respect to screens and media. I don't know what your family was like, Jason, but my parents would never. I mean, I was born in 1970 and grew up in the 70s and 80s at home. I mean, they would never have allowed me to have a phone, or sorry, well, yeah, to have a phone in my room. But I was going to say a TV. I was not ever going to have a TV in my room. And I remember my mother at one point blocking, MTV from our cable subscription. And then, do you remember when that movie came out the day after? It was like
Oh, I do remember the day
Lawrence,
after. I used to show
Kansas.
that after
Yeah.
the AP European history test.
And that movie was a dramatization of a nuclear exchange between the United States and Russia, and or the Soviet Union. And evidently, Ronald Reagan, president at the time, actually saw that, and that helped convince him that we needed treaties and we really needed to try to work towards disarmament. It's real fascinating. But my point is that we are such a far cry from the time when a parent who wanted to could say, hey, we're going. Oh, and the story about that is I wasn't allowed to watch that because my parents thought that would have too much of a psychological impact on me. That's probably why it turned out so weird. Phones today are so ubiquitous. I walk into our school cafeteria basically every day, and 80% of the kids are, face down on the phone. So I think some of this has to do with just conversations about the media we consume, the influencers we listen to, and having open dialogue about that. But, I'm going to continue to be careful talking about memes because, boy, these memes can be so fraught with absolutely sometimes terrible and inappropriate inside jokes and just it's so multi-layered that I think it can be fraught with danger. But this is the world we're living in, and I think part of what we need to do is find safe places to be able to talk about this. And anyway, I think that doesn't give an answer, but
No, that's pretty
grappling with
good.
it, recognizing it's an issue, and then
Yeah.
finding ways to talk about it is a good strategy.
Well, and I'll even say, Dr. Fryer, cheers to you for pounding on this drum for so long, because it seems like it's never been a part of your professional persona to be like double serious about this. And as it turns out, you were right. This is incredibly complex and matters for democracy.
It really does. Yeah. And news matters. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about kids and AI. This is a TechCrunch article, and this one is I guess it's just March 15th. Okay. So it's not that old. It's about a month old. Lawyer behind AI psychosis warns of mass casualty risks. Probably we've heard some of these articles about character AI and about the suicides of some youth who have been, talking to AIs and becoming their friends and their counselors and things like that. This goes into some detail about the Canadian event where an 18-year-old talked to ChatGPT about feeling isolated and being obsessed with violence. And according to the court, ChatGPT not only validated feelings, it told her the weapons to use and gave information from other mass casualty events. And then she went on to kill a bunch of folks before committing suicide. And there's other cases of suicide. And this just points to the dangers of not having guardrails and also just releasing kids to these models and what it means to have them out in the wild that kids can have access to. I mean, we have a lot of loneliness. We have a lot of trauma and difficulty in adolescence and in people's lives. And there's so many different things going on. And so, these AI tools, while they can be incredibly positive and wonderful, they're not set up to handle any kind of mental health counseling situation that could come up. And honestly, they're pretty much coded to try and please the user. And if the user is asking for something, they're going to try and provide that. So, this is pointing to the idea that we need to have guardrails, safety. AI has a really high potential to be used by bad actors. And sometimes it's not even, quote, a bad actor. Maybe it's a child in crisis or a person in crisis, but somebody who's going to be looking for not only, validation and support, but possibly they're going to be looking for information that's going to help them hurt other people. It mentions that word sycophancy. I think that probably needs to be a vocabulary word for all of us in AI. How do you define, Dr. Knifer, sycophancy? Do you
That
have a way of
AI has,
talking about it?
yeah, AI has a proclivity of kissing your butt. I mean, that's the easy crowd version of it. But yeah, I don't want to say I told you so, because this is the drum I've been beating on, but like, yeah, this is a real problem. And the problem with it, in fact, I was just having a conversation with a colleague of mine by email the other day about this, and we were talking about sometimes you like the cheerleading, right? And that's what makes this, I think, more complex for me as an educator, is because I obviously know that my ideas are not the best ever, and that I get it, right? Like I think I've got a firm grasp on reality, but I also very much enjoy the back and forth with some of these AI models when I'm working
Oh,
on something
yeah.
thoughtful or creative,
Yes.
or it's out of my depth and I start to get to understand it, right? And it's there to reward me, and that feels like something that could be incredibly useful in education, but we just don't know enough about it yet, right? And I think we need to be very careful to introduce something that we don't understand freely and without criticism in the learning environment.
Something that I'm thankful to have gotten a lot more insight into when we lived in Oklahoma, because we lived in Oklahoma City for 16 years. And it involves the Oklahoma bombing attack at the
Yeah,
federal building, and Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols. And um, you know, my parents and I, we lived in Kansas, in Manhattan, which is near Junction City, and there was a Ryder truck spot that's right on the interstate. That's where McVeigh bought the truck. But like, that was fertilizer. He was in the army. He was a domestic terrorist. But folks that are wanting to do harm to others have more tools and more access to information than they ever have before. And there's a media literacy connection, which we're not doing in middle school right now in my class. And I don't think we domestic extremism and the need that we have for folks in government, and then also folks outside of government in the nonprofit world, and just in other groups, think tanks, other groups, to be working on this. In the case of educators, I mean, part of this is trying to connect with kids and get kids help. Everybody needs a friend. Everybody needs a connection. Everybody needs to be seen, right? There's a complex set of factors that go into somebody that wants to not only harm themselves, but maybe harm others. But this article in TechCrunch highlights some real troubling issues. And again, I'll go back to the let's talk about it. I think every single school, and this isn't just for the counselors, but we should all be talking of AI companions. And if children, if kids are using AI companions, can be wonderful. And I've heard some of those stories, but it's just not a proven, hey, this is safe for everybody. Let's just let everybody have it. It's totally not. And these articles really highlight the dangers present. And so, you and I aren't going to solve all these issues, but if we can encourage not only educators, parents, grandparents, caregivers, what's on our phones? What are our on their phones? And what are we doing with AI, and specifically AI companion chatbots? But you can use any AI as a companion chatbot,
yeah,
and that's something else to be really aware of, right? So any model that you've got, and it probably can also be some of these models that are running offline or whatever, right? You can just start off, this here's the hat I want you to put on right now. I'd like you to be my counselor and help me whatever. So it's not like it's only going to be those companion apps, but those companion apps are being trained to specifically do certain things, and those can be a flag to have a conversation. But I don't think anybody should feel like, oh well, all they're using is the pro version of Gemini. Well, that's one of the most powerful frontier models, and it can do just about anything that probably those other apps and things like that can do.
yeah. And to be clear, like our earlier conversation, like 18 months ago's frontier models are beat by free and open source models that you can run on your computer today. It's not universal, and sometimes it's very slow or impossible. But if you go out and buy a $1,200 MacBook Air, you're going to have a more powerful enough computer to run pretty good models at home. And those can do the same stuff, right? Like, in fact, in a lot of ways, they're much less restricted than their commercial counterparts online. So yeah, it's never been a better time to openly talk about the utility and the danger of technological tools.
Let's talk about the AI documentary. Have you been seeing much about this?
It was here, and some of our team at work went to see it, said it was really good, but I'm excited to see if I can find a copy of it somewhere.
Yeah. So here's an article from PBS KQED, headlined "The AI Movie." It says that, interestingly, Elon Musk backed out at the last minute, and Mark Zuckerberg declined to participate. But Google DeepMind CEO Denis Hassabis, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, they're all in it. 3 of the 5 kind of most important sort of AI CEOs. And I guess it's good in that it doesn't let those, and I haven't seen it yet. My spouse and I are going to try to see it this weekend. But it's trying to tackle this question, which it doesn't answer definitively because nobody can. how concerned should we be about the potential for AI to do bad things and maybe end humanity? I mean, that is on the table. People will throw around, nah, well, just 10% or whatever. But evidently, this documentary does a really good job laying out these issues, not just having the tech CEOs, dominate the whole conversation. And the Tristan Harris, who's from the Center for Humane Technology, he's the one that helped bring us The Social Dilemma, which many of us remember during COVID, was a really poignant and powerful documentary pointing to the harms of social media and the need for limits. And I think some of what we see Australia doing with their nationwide cell phone ban in school, right? And then other kinds of pushes to limit screen time and phones are attributable to some of this kind of documentary work. So I think I mentioned last week or last show that I saw an interview. Actually, I've seen a couple interviews with Bernie Sanders. He did one with
Yeah.
was with Claude, but then I watched one with, I think it was Hank Green.
Yep.
That just did it talking about AI. In fact, I need to put that one in because it's an excellent interview. And the big point that Bernie makes in that is, hey, we can disagree about a lot of things, but letting any five people be the ones that basically decide something as important as, are we going to regulate AI? Yes or no? How are we going to do it? And then specifically these five guys who, I mean, I really like Dennis Hassabis, and, I don't put them, I have different feelings about all of them, but they are CEOs of large corporations, and they have a really, strong interest to be profitable, and that's understandable. But it doesn't mean that we should just, cede all of the decision making over to these folks when it comes to AI regulation. So I'm hopeful that documentaries like this will lead to constructive regulation, and that was one of the big points that Hank Green was bringing out in the Bernie Sanders interview. Was talking about some reasonable regulation, and then the whole idea of like limiting data centers and how fast this build out's happening. So,
by the way,
all
I
right.
did ask AI what the symptoms of AI psychosis are, and then as we talked about that earlier, and then I asked it to diagnose me whether or not I had AI psychosis. I did it on ChatGPT, Gemini, and also on Claude, and the answers are pretty interesting. I have a builder mindset, so I'm not engaged in AI psychosis. But I can give you a read on something more useful, a grounded read on your patterns based on how you show up here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm a mindset builder, a pattern seeker, but very disciplined. Strategic ambition with detachment, healthy skepticism towards AI, which matters a lot. Where you do live on the edge in the good way is cognitive intensity and tool immersion. You go deep into agents, MCP, councils, frameworks, PMK systems, rapid experimentation across platforms. That can sometimes lead to overcomplex systems, mental overload, chasing elegant architectures that may or may not pay off. But that's not pathology, it's a builder's tax. But it does not see any. Go ahead.
This is also why I think it's valuable to really invest in a particular model. I am so invested now in Claude.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do the same thing. I'll ask Claude to psychoanalyze me, because the quality of responses that it's giving, and I'm convinced that much of this has to do with the memory that it has. Like, how much time are we spending sharing our minds with this AI? And it's just getting better and better at remembering stuff and being able to analyze us. I mean, this is where, if there's not guardrails and its interests diverge from our interests, both personally and as a member of humanity, is it's a scary thing. But are you more Claude focused now, or where are you spending most of your time?
I probably am. I mean, I'm continuing with ChatGPT for now, but I spend more of my time on Claude. The problem with Claude, of course, is that I run out of usage really easily, usually once a day. So that's my biggest problem there. And I could probably, actually, what I could easily do is get get rid of ChatGPT and stick with Gemini plus Claude and have more than enough, and then all my
That's what
other
I'm
little
doing. Yeah.
experimentations, because I think they're similar enough. Although new models coming soon from Anthropic.
Have you all at the Frontier Learning Lab, maybe you already have this, started to put together like canned prompts that you all use and that you recommend to others?
Yep, yeah, it's on our Substack. There's a link there that's called the Base Camp, which is kind of our page. It's actually hosted on a Canvas page, but let me see. I'm going to
Is it on
see
the
if I can
about
go to the
page?
short link.
I've seen the post about Basecamp, but I'll admit that I did not dive into it. So yeah, there it is.
Oh
Your
my
AI
God, I
starting point
remember
for
the short link
2026.
here. Here's
The
the short
Basecamp.
link list.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and it's a Canvas course.
Yep.
Okay. Well, very cool. And there you have it, folks. There is the link. And so that's going to include a variety of different prompts that you have all developed and recommend. And
Yep. Yeah. And we keep adding more there. Caitlin and her crew have been doing a really great job of keeping that moving forward. Um, and then, as my brain sometimes works, I usually get 80% of something done, and then fail to finish it. So I'm trying to finish up a bunch right now, to get those put out as well. But I know part of me would love it if there was a better way to share prompts. The closest that we have right now is that we do subscribe to Text Expander at work. In
yeah.
fact, this is a heck of a gig of week. I've talked about text expansion, probably 2 dozen times since we started this podcast. It's still my favorite hack on a computer. But one of the things that we've done is shared several prompts inside of our organization through text expansion,
Yeah.
and that's been super nice because there's about 10 or 12 pretty generic ones that I use frequently. I just stick them in a share folder with my colleagues, and so they can use them however they like.
So this is jumping around, but this is related to the idea of the prompt because Mike Caulfield at the University of Washington is the one who introduced me to this, called it deep research, this AI super prompt. He spent months doing it. Monday night, we just had the TIP teachers meet up on Zoom for media literacy. And I learned that Mike Caulfield has a new version of SIFT for AI.
Oh,
And so I just dropped that link. You can just Google Mike Caulfield's Substack. The post is called for AI Easter Bunny on right. He uses a meme of our president with an Easter bunny, and anyway, he's sifting it. What's so interesting is he's not using super prompts. The model, it's here. I'll share it really quick. The model is basically just get it into AI. If most people are not going to take a prompt and actually put it into an LLM. So this is it. Mike Caulfield from April 4th, SIFT for AI and Easter Bunny on the right, a demonstration of the find relevant sources move. So this is the meme that he's using to investigate. But this is the updated SIFT, which I started my unit today with my kids on Fruit Loop conspiracy theories, lateral reading, SIFT, the moon landings. Let's investigate our sources. The new model is stop and get it in, meaning take whatever it is you're fact checking into the best, most powerful LLM that you have. Don't worry about the perfect prompt. You'll script it afterwards. Just get it in, and then you can either go either way to investigate evidence or source or find relevant sources, which is a bit of a change. Before it was like, investigate the source. You stop, you investigate the source. This is saying, okay, now, yes, you can investigate the source, but you also need to investigate the claims, and then you can track down links. And so anyway, this is, if you're not familiar, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say we're both pretty strong fanboys of Mike Caulfield and the SIFT
he does
model.
amazing work.
Yeah, and he's just a great thinker. So I don't know. My thinking about that is, okay, that sounds good. Yes, let's look at how AI tools can be used to help us, fact check claims and memes and posts and articles and whatever. But again, go back to the prompts, I think that there's a really strong case to be made for different prompts. I was talking to my wife today. It's another geek of the week that I have, but asking the AI to ask me questions. And I think I got that from you, Jason, or maybe we just got that reinforced. But every time I'm developing, a prompt, I'll say, are there any questions I can answer that will clarify and help you do a better job? And it always asks something. Anyway.
Yep, and I just added my favorite one into chat. Please ask me clarifying questions one at a time, providing options if you can, until you're 98% confident you fully understand my request and can deliver a high quality response. And I love this. It's always super effective. I add it 2/3 of the time I'm talking with an AI, and it really does make a difference, right? And that notion of having it interview you is and I'm honestly surprised that more people that are looking for general knowledge or for it to create something don't utilize that. But I also read a lot of articles from people that say that they think that the answers are always terrible. And if you're just treating it like Google, I agree, they probably are.
Yeah, you can't just treat it like a vending machine.
Nope.
And again, the more time you spend with it, I think that has an impact on the quality of results. All right, you've got a couple other articles in there. Google Vids. I could do the Japan robotics article. What else? What do you want to do?
Yeah, let me just a couple of these I can do really quickly. Google Vids is now free, even for free accounts. That's the one where you can generate like 8-second videos that are usually pretty good. There's definitely limitations with the free account, but if you're looking to play around with a pretty good video generator, then Google Vids is pretty solid.
And we need to mention, we probably said it before, but we've missed a few weeks. I mean, Sora is dead.
Yeah.
ChatGPT killed Sora, and there was like $1 billion investment that Disney was going to be making. And anyway, all the AI slop and all this stuff, and then Sora gets killed. So interesting that Google's still moving forward. I think that OpenAI just needed the compute, and Sora was just eating the data centers for lunch, and they had to just like say, got to turn that off. That was my read.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple places, so I think you're right.
Have you played with Google Vids?
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool for making slideshows and doing that sort of thing. So
Do you use it to create a short animation that you're then going to put in a slideshow, or how would you see using it? Or you could create AI slop, but other than AI slop creation, I'll talk a little bit. Yeah, I'll say I'll say that I have not. I played with Sora a little bit, and one of the things that Sora gave you some initial tokens and resources to be able to create short videos, and then with time, or I'm sure if you paid more money, it would allow you to create longer ones. But Google Vids, that's not inside. It's one of the tools that's now in Gemini, right? Because Gemini's tool set, when you click on a prompt, you want to make an image, do you want to bring in Notebook LM, you want to, I think do you want to make music? I haven't played with that yet.
Oh, I have played with music, and it's stupid and delightful. So 3 or 4 weeks ago, Mike and I did our typical NCCE presentation, which is 30
Which
and
is
50.
like 30 tools in 30 minutes or something.
Yeah. We and admittedly, it is performance art. That's what we describe it as. And every people are like, I get the best stuff from your guys' presentation.
I
But
need to come see you at NCCE next year.
yeah,
I need to just make that my priority.
it's a fun couple of days of nerdery. So but what Vids does is that it is like it'll create a video for you, but not just that generation. Oh, I was gonna tell you what Google songs are all about. You can generate 30-second songs by prompt. So when I'm even wondering, I might just do this in the background here. Hardest part here is gonna be figure out how to broadcast this, but I'm gonna generate music and old-fashioned intro or radio show intro to the Wes and Jason show.
So here's, as Jason's doing that, this is the tool set now in Gemini. Tools: create image, canvas, deep research, create video, and there it is, new, create music, and then there's guided learning, which I haven't played with. So you're creating music. All right, let's hear the
Yeah, let's
masterpiece.
see here. Let's see if I can share. Nope, I don't want to add a file. I want to share a screen. And I actually want to share a window because I can share audio too.
Does it have that button like Zoom?
Yep.
This is exciting audio, folks. We are about to amaze you with the most exciting 30-second clip of music that you've heard tonight. There were some AI music companies that were taken offline, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I haven't really kept up with that. One of them.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of them. I think made a big deal with the record industry, and so people could still use it, but they don't own anything they create, which actually seems kind of sort of reasonable. But
actually, the Supreme Court, to jump around, the Supreme Court ruled on this with AI creations, right? Didn't the Supreme Court rule that you cannot copyright AI created stuff?
Okay, are you ready, Wes?
I'm ready to hear it.
This is probably going to be really dorky, but
broadcasting through the ether, Wes and Jason, tune in, stay right where you are, the airwaves are alive, the Wes and Jason Show, Wes and Jason.
Okay, I think maybe you need to send this to me. StreamYard has the opportunity to have your intro reel. So maybe coming to a podcast near you soon, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that was so terrible that it was great. So
okay, yeah. All right, well, here's the answer to the copyright question. So yes, Gemini reports, and my memories are correct. March 2nd, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear the case of Thaler versus Perlmutter, leaving lower court rulings in place that require a human author to have copyright protection. So that lovely jingle, that lovely ditty that you just heard, Jason was going to rush off tonight to try to get the copyright, and sadly, in the United States, he will not be able to do it. So, sorry. Holy cow, Jason! It's almost the top of the hour. Do we want to talk about a couple more things before we geek of the week it?
Let me see here what can't wait for a week or two. Oh, I do want to mention quickly, there's apparently a new model that Claude has created called Mythos, which is the kind of their next amazing model. Opus, which is their current best model, is widely considered the best model in many use cases. It's also quite expensive to run. So Mythos, I'm assuming, will be a step both in function and in price. But it was so effective that apparently it found thousands of zero-day vulnerabilities in software when they did a test on it. So they decided to give it to security researchers first. So the model exists, but it found very quickly so many software vulnerabilities, they felt like they couldn't ethically release it before security researchers have had a chance to tell the companies to patch the issues.
Which is both exciting and scary, right? Because these models, one of the concerns about vibe coding is, oh my gosh, these people who know nothing about security or very little, are going to be releasing software that's going to put all these, all this data in jeopardy. Well, if the AI models are good enough at checking for security vulnerabilities, then perhaps that's not going to happen. So that is fascinating. And that's Project Glasswing?
Yes, that's Project Glasswing, and that's apparently the project involves a lot of other manufacturers too, and they're all kind of work together to get rid of issues. But I will say I've probably seen a dozen articles in the last 2 years where they found an exploit in a 1982 video game on the
Oh, yeah.
Commodore 64, or all sorts of pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I'll do one more quickly and then we can geek of the weekend. This is TechCrunch from April 5th. In Japan, the robot isn't coming for your job, it's filling the one nobody wants. And, Japan's demographics are a very aging population. This article explains how Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry is really working to position itself as the dominant physical AI player, capturing 30% of the global market share by 2040. The labor shortages that they have are driving some of this, cultural acceptance of robotics. And again, their demographics. So their population continues to decline. Those of working age are just under 60%, and it's going to continue to shrink over the next 20 years. So they have a wide variety of needs that they have to care for their aging population, and robots are already playing a role. And, according to this article, at least, it's not just going to take people's jobs. It's going to do jobs that there may not be people there to do. So
Yeah.
pretty fascinating.
And that surprises me not at all. When I was in Japan, I saw a lot of cleaning robots. It just wasn't that unusual at all, actually, to see various mechanical ways that those types of jobs are being completed. So pretty interesting stuff.
Okay. All right. Well, there's more, but we are at the top of the hour. So do you have a geek of the week tonight, sir?
I do. I just want to share a little something that I was surprised existed, but I'm glad it does. Microsoft has been releasing their own models the last 5 weeks or so, and I got to say, they're not too bad. There's 3 of them now. There's an audio transcription model, and I think these are open sourced, if I remember correctly. There's an audio transcription model, there's a text-to-speech model, and then there's also an image generation model. And I've only tested, for 5-6 minutes, the image generation model. They call it May I Image 2, but it's pretty good. So it's nice to see Microsoft doing their own work here, and I don't think that their relationship with OpenAI is likely a long-term relationship. They've been doing a lot with Claude code inside of Microsoft, so I think that's a partnership. And then it's nice to see they're developing their own models as well.
Cool. I've got 2. Actually, this would be worth showing. 2 geeks of the week. I'll try to do quickly. This first one's a blog post. I'm now writing my media literacy blog posts on both Substack and my regular blog. So this is called Sketchnote to AI Infographic. I started my unit on the moon landing hoax and lateral reading and all that stuff. And we watched Mike Caulfield give a little introduction, talk about the Stanford experiment, why lateral reading is so needed. And then this lovely 10-year-old CBS Sunday Morning puppeteer video talking about pulling strings and making this metaphor that, hey, with information, sometimes people try to pull our strings. So I sketchnoted on the board. This was the picture of the whiteboard in my classroom today. And then I asked Claude to create the image prompt that I would give to Gemini. And look at this. This is the AI infographic, which with Claude's help, Gemini created for me using Nano Banana. And this is awesome. I can't wait to share this with my students. And I'm actually Flint AI is the main AI tool that our students use. But they also have access to Canva and Canva AI, and then they also have access to Gemini. So it's going to be really interesting to see when they put their own sketch notes in. I also gave it more context. I gave it my lesson. And again, I've been spending time with Claude, so it knows I work with SIFT a lot. So I don't know how much of that memory played into this, but I am just, I'm over the moon. It was really, really cool. And then the last one is, I just put this up last night. First Monday of the month, I host a webinar for the Media Education Lab. This one is called Memes, Warfare, and Propaganda. And this is going to take a look at a variety of different articles. The Psychology Today one we talked about early is here, but then there's others. Iran strikes and the meme war. Great podcasts. Angry Planet, one of my favorite podcasts. So lots of good stuff. And that is part of an answer to the question, Dr. Neifer, what do we do with all this meme warfare and these things going on? Let's find ways to talk about it and become more aware of what's happening. And then maybe together we can find ways to address it. So, where can folks find you when you are not here on Wednesday night, sharing your knowledge with us from what appears to be the Apple campus in Cupertino?
Yeah, I never leave. Great cafeteria. You can find me probably best is on LinkedIn. How about you, sir?
I am at westfryer.com. My favorite spaces to share now are Mastodon and Blue Sky, but I'm sharing a lot of other places. This has been the EdTech Situation Room. We're excited that several of you joined us live, and hopefully, if it follows suit, we'll have lots and lots of folks checking it out after the fact. So please visit us at edtechsr.com, edtechsr.com/links, where you can get all of the show notes. But we are publishing to Substack, and you can just Google EdTechSR. Find us there. Please let us know if you're listening to the show, anything that you find particularly valuable, and join us live if you can. We're not here every week. We're sort of a fortnightly podcast, but every week we can. We're here on Wednesday night, and we encourage you to stay savvy, stay safe, keep playing with AI, and keep sharing your lessons learned, because, that's how I pretend to know a lot of stuff. I get to hang out with Jason and hear what he says on Wednesday nights. So good stuff. Take care, everybody.
Good night.